All right, guys. Well, it's the top of the hour. Dr. Fain, can you still hear me all right?
Yes, I can hear you really well, Heath.
Wonderful. Okay, I can hear you well. So, everyone, I hope that y'all are hearing both I and Dr. Fain loud and clear. We are going to go ahead and get started. Let me share my screen real quick here. Well, slide only. Figure this out here, guys, so y'all can see our slideshow. Cool.
Heath, can everybody hear me at this point?
Yep, yeah. They're saying that everyone can hear you loud and clear, so.
Wonderful. This is a new venture, and this is the very first one. Bear with us while we pull everything together.
Right.
This is certainly new for me, though those you folks know me. I've presented throughout my entire life, but never with this newfangled electronic material. So I'm happy to do it. It's exciting. It's a new learning curve. I happily labeled myself a Luddite for a long time. I can no longer do that.
That's right. We're exploring some cool new fun technology, and our hope is that we can make Dr. Fain's knowledge accessible to everyone.
This is the way it's done in this day and age, and that's what I'm here for, is to bring that information forward in the way that people can hear it. And so we're embracing this, and the entire store, the Herbacy, is embracing this. And I hope you do enjoy my ebook. That is a dream come true for me. It's beautifully done and chock full of information, and I had a lot of fun writing it over the years. And it is an accumulation of 10 years, maybe 15 years of information. So enjoy it. It's going to be a fun read, and yet full of information.
All right, guys. So I think I've got the slideshow on properly now. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Make sure everyone can hear us still. Looking good, looking good. Okay. Well, welcome everyone to Fain's Herbacy online webinar. Today is July 3rd, 2014, and this is our first live webinar ever, as we've explained. So a big step for Dr. Fain, Fain's Herbacy, and we're really excited to do these more often. And based upon participation and questions that y'all provide us, we will continue doing these webinars based on specific subjects where Dr. Fain can explain his knowledge on specific things. So before we jump into everything, we do want you to know that for all the webinar attendees right now, we're giving a special offer of 33% off of relaxation support. Dr. Fain's going to be explaining this private label product, and you are welcome to add it to, you can click the add to cart button below if you are interested in purchasing this special offer. So without further ado, Dr. Fain is going to start telling us about a story which we've titled Wisdom from the Desert. Let me go ahead and share the screen for both Dr. Fain. Say hello, Dr. Fain.
Hello there. Yeah, how fun. The wisdom from the desert with me. First of all, I'm not sure it's wisdom. It's storytelling for sure, and it does come from my life, and it's heartfelt. It's real experience. It's many years ago, I had the opportunity of meeting this fellow here, and his name was Lench Archuleta. And Lench lived in an area of the Sonoran Desert somewhere north of Phoenix and somewhere south of Flagstaff, and had a wonderful family, and Patty and his son, and just an adorable way to spend some time. Lunch is a Yaqui Native American and Indian. The Yaqui were never enculturated into the American way that most of the Indians were, because they were considered by us white folks as Mexicans, and so they were never seen as Indians. And because of that, his traditional way of looking at the world and medicine and approach to the world never changed. It was taught by his great-grandfather and his great-great-grandfather to his grandfather and to his father and to him. I got to spend time with him. He and I became friends. And it was very, very interesting for me. And it was very interesting for him. The two of us connected and liked each other. I still do, though I haven't seen him in a long time. He's close to my heart still, though. Well, I got to spend time with he and his family, and many times we would go deep into the desert and see places that most people would never see. And part of what he would do is he would be eager to take somebody from the city, and I was from Los Angeles at the time, and then from here, Eureka Springs, Arkansas, he would take us out and drop us off in this far distant place in the Sonoran Desert, and then leave. And we wouldn't know when he would come back, and we were by ourselves. He wouldn't leave us with anybody. He would know where we were, but there was no way to reach him. Cell phones wouldn't matter anyway because there was no connectivity. And there we were. Wherever we were, that's where we were. And the idea there was to see what happened. And most people from the city, including me when I first did it, were consumed with fear. The desert, starkly beautiful, enormously beautiful, and in an odd sort of way, threatening and toxic in its own way. Certainly, if anything went wrong in the desert, there'd be a problem with sustaining life. What would happen if, while sitting on a rock, you got bitten by a rattlesnake? A lot of them there. What would happen if you got sun exposure? What would happen if you ran out of water? What would happen if scorpions got you? All of this is common in the desert. Yet it's a beautiful place, starkly beautiful, wonderful. First thing that happens is the wave of fear. The second thing that happens is, what do I do? When you realize you can't do anything, the third thing that happens is, well, you start to become accustomed to where you are. And in the moment, and then I remember I took my shirt off. I remember taking my boots off. I remember feet in the sand, feeling the desert wind bristle against the tiny, tiny little hairs on my chest and on my neck, and becoming very aware of life in that moment, just how exciting it was and how threatening it was too. And isn't that the way life is? If you look for the excitement, you find it. If you look for the threatening, you find it. What I discovered through the many times of being with lunch in the desert is that there were many things that I could become in touch with and aware of that I couldn't in the city because of everything that was going on. A lot of distractions, always. In the desert, there are no distractions. Think about it historically. Anybody that we know of today, historically, goes to the desert to find themselves, and they bring back wisdom to be shared. Think of the biblical stories of Moses, and think of all of those old, wonderful pieces of information we gain from those stories that were written. It's holy in its way, and incredible when you're able to do it. I did this for many years in a row for a couple of weeks with lunch. I would never stay overnight. Would always end up going back to his home and establish trust and learn how to trust without having lots of verification and lots of validation. Hard to do, isn't it? Trust without confirmation, validation, trust that things are working the way they're supposed to work. One thing I learned while I was there is surrounded by this beauty and this potential toxicity of the desert is, and you might want to write this wonderful short poem down. I'll repeat it. First, it's so simple. It's 3 lines. Beauty is life. Life is experience. Think of that. Experience brings measure. Some people would call that balance. I think it's a little different than measure. Beauty is life. Life is experience. Experience brings measure. Now, that's only if you allow life to occur in its fullness and its richness. What occurs is people tend to shut it down. They think that life has to be all beauty, and yet ugly things happen. And it does. Life includes that. Think about a bird looking at a cat. The bird would see the cat as the embodiment of everything ugly and toxic. The cat's ready to eat the bird and is probably excited and is licking his chops thinking of a good dinner. They're toxic elements. They're not meshing together in the way that the bird would like. The bird has the ability to fly away. We do that too. We fly away by not remaining when we can remain. We cut things short and move on. The second thing we tend to do is we tend to hold. Hold. When holding occurs in the body, the intentionality of the holding becomes real in some manner. Tensions, nervousness, stress, anxiety. Anxiety is literally anticipating what can happen in the future instead of being in the moment. The curious thing about anxiety is the body responds in the same way to anxiety as it does to excitement, except the intentionality of it is different. Excitement brings aliveness and puts us back into that sense of, wow, this is wonderful and great. I want to embrace it. I want to move. By embracing, I don't mean clutching. I mean this kind of embracing, touching, loving. Now, that also includes what happens internally for us. Am I in touch with my beauty? Am I in touch with my own toxicity? Toxicity and beauty, separate parts of the continuum. Without this, one isn't able to feel this. Without this, one isn't able to fully engage that. What we don't want to do is stay stuck. We want to be able to move. When we're able to move, that brings experience. Life is about experience. Then the experience, if we're aware of it and we can engage it, that brings us some sense of measure and balance. The holding, in some way, in the physical form, perhaps even the emotional form, perhaps even the spiritual form, is what manifests many chronic ailments. Think about it. The holding, in its different ways, is what manifests many of the chronic ailments. Now, it's not entirely true we're all 100% responsible for what happens in our life. We're not. Other energy in life impacts and influences us. And things happen. Accidents occur. And accidents aren't predictable, nor do we bring them to ourselves. Perhaps we did by not being fully present. On the other hand, they do occur. This is the intentionality that occurs around us and comes together from other sources. The curious thing is that everything I'm talking about right now not only ties back to the spirituality of ailments and illness, but also to high physics. There's a new particle found called, I believe it's called a fermion, which is also called the God particle, lowercase g, not the uppercase g, lowercase. And it's the particle that causes these energies like protons, neutrons, and electrons to cause firmament or matter. Think about that, down deep level like that. Perhaps the intentionality is what causes the fermion to cause all of the rest to this to manifest in our lives. Once something is physically manifested in our lives, rarely does it go away through spiritual or emotional means alone. And a good emotional sense comes from a good spiritual sense. Spiritual is about who am I? What am I here for? What do I do? The physical part manifests all of that so that we can experience it. Once these ailments become physical, usually we have to address them only in a physical way, almost always. Sometimes physical ailments resolve on their own with nothing more than having a good heart-to-heart connection with somebody who will listen. Once that occurs, the lessening, the release, the letting go, the ailments sometimes totally disappear by that, all on their own. The nature of illness is, what message is this bringing to me in my life at this moment that I need to pay attention to? What I'm talking about here is healing. Maybe, maybe not curing, but healing. Curing may occur. Healing is something that can be done. It's a fascinating premise when we look at it. How much in charge of what occurs is ours.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated by that aspect of health. The more I personally learn about living, a more natural life, trying to be healthy, the more you do realize the power of the mind, right? And
Yes.
I think that's what you're, trying to say here is
Yes.
that, ultimately 90% of our health is determined by the way we perceive ourselves and the way that we treat ourselves mentally,
yes,
emotionally.
Yes. Yes. The old philosopher Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am," and it's true. It's entirely true. How I see myself, how I deal with myself, how I deal with others, what kind of social support I have around me, and how I interpret that coming back to me, all contributes to my sense of who I am. And then I can move forward, I can step back, I can dance to one side, I can dance to the other side, I can dance. I don't have to be stuck anywhere. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, it's a wonderful concept, and I love your philosophy and angle on it. I've heard some of your stories about experiences in the desert. I want to go back to that, and I want you to share some more of the stories in your experiences there and the
Yeah.
wisdom that you have derived from. You said you spent some time with this Yaqui Indian, and I would love to hear the more stories. I'm sure everyone that's attending the webinar would love it too.
Sure. Understand that I come from a very high science background as a young man, Division of Nuclear Medicine chief but at UCLA, technical chief at UCLA. Prior to that, though, I was a researcher, research technologist with Dr. Ernie Garcia, who was at the time, he was a 24-year-old nuclear physicist. And I had the good fortune right out of school to be invited to work with Ernie with quantum mechanics and the application of computers in the early 70s. Can you imagine computers in the early 70s? The size has half this room, and it had less memory in it than somebody's modern day watch. But we applied it to nuclear medicine and the study of organ systems. High science. I published my first paper when I was 27, and I published maybe 16 after that through the University of Miami, and then at UCLA for the 10 years that I was there, making the research side of nuclear medicine work for physician scientists at UCLA. So I met many very, very fascinating people there. High science, very high science, a very high-end ivory tower, if you will, research and intellectual property. That's what we did. And then I would go out and teach it too. That was part of my job, was to go teach it at national meetings all over the country. I also taught it on the university level at the University of California and at the community college level at Los Angeles City College. Very fascinating time, very difficult time though. You can imagine. So when I finally met Lench Archuleta, uh, I was coming from this background of high science. I had already studied a great deal of Gestalt psychology, which emphasizes wholeness and looking at things in a different way. For instance, a Gestalt piece would be, do you see this mug? Okay. And what is behind the mug? And most people would say, oh, there's a handle there. Well, suppose there wasn't a handle. How could you know by looking at the front of the mug? What we do is we create images according to what we believe there should be. And in this case, there is a handle. So we have it. But I studied that at the Gestalt Institute of LA for many years, and actually sat on their board of directors for a while too. It was a very formative and opening place for me. Became a psychotherapist, and then listened to the stories of thousands of people from the early 80s to the late 90s. Learned all about perception through the stories of other people in my presence. Now, where am I going with this? I met Lench, ended up in the desert, and realized through that experience the beauty of the desert, the beauty of the connective tissue I had with him, the toxicity of the desert, and recognizing that we're all flawed in some way, the toxicity that's potential, though he and I always got along, putting it all together and finding out that there's more. If you're open to it, then you can imagine that you can experience and maybe not see, and maybe not understand, maybe not smell, certainly not taste, perhaps hear. Sometimes these things happen beyond our senses. One of the ways that he described this was when you press a key on the keyboard of your computer, you think that it's instantaneous because it shows up on your screen immediately. But there's a lag time from the time you press the key to the time it shows up, the infinitesimal small time. He calls that the in-between. We perceive it, remember? We perceive it as instantaneous. It isn't. In that lag time, a lot can occur. I was taken to this beautiful, beautiful location in the Sonoran Desert, and he was working with a client from a large city, so he left, and he said, enjoy yourself. Okay, so I was walking around a little bit, and I saw this hillock in the distance, and it had an archway over the top, and I thought, well, that'd be a wonderful place to spend some time and just be. So I walked up the hillock, it was a little distance, went under the arch, stood under the arch, and trying to decide that side of the arch or this side of the arch. Well, he was on this side of the arch in the distance, long distance, with the client he was working with. I thought, I'll go on the other side and just lay down on an angle, it was a hillock, and just enjoy the beautiful sky. So I went out through the arch, I lay down, I tipped my hat down to shade my eyes from the sun. I was enjoying the beauty of the winter in the desert, which meant very temperate. It was a beautiful temperature, and there were a lot of spring flowers in the desert just coming out, and it's a remarkably gorgeous place. Still the toxicity. Lots of thorns on the cactuses, and still the threat of the rattlesnakes and the scorpions. So, you know, that was there. As I lay there relaxing, very, very content, the most amazing thing occurred to my left. To my left, in the stone, were sleeping quarters carved out, niches carved out. Apparently, this had been a place used by Indian cultures long, long ago. And they would come there and they would stay. And then I don't know what else they would do, but there were sleeping niches there, so it was an ancient place. As I was laying there, I felt stamping by the top left of my ear, stamping on the ground. And I turned to look. I saw nothing. I lifted up my hat, turned to look. I saw nothing. I felt the ground vibrate. I heard the stamping. I saw nothing, smelled nothing. It's odd, because part of my senses said something was there, part of my senses said nothing was there. Then I heard three voices. Two voices were husky and low. One voice was higher. They did speak a language I didn't understand. I've never heard the language before. So I looked around again. I saw nothing. So I just lay there and I waited. In the distance, I heard Lynch chanting in the distance, and he kept getting closer as he chanted. He came up the hillock. His client was not with him. His client had been sent back to the truck. He came up and he said, "It's time to go." And I looked at him and I said, "What's going on?" And he said, "It's time to go." I said, "Sure." And we walked down, and it was surrounded by saguaro, cactus with all the thorns. And I said, "Well, what is this? What's going on?" He said, "We must leave. It's time to go." Okay. So we got to his truck, we left, and after about 10 miles away, I asked again, "What happened?" And he said, "I needed to get you out of there." He said, "What occurred was there's an old Potter woman who lives there. I didn't see her. I heard her. And there's two warriors that live with her to protect her. I didn't see them. I heard them." And he said, what the two warriors were talking about was what to do with you. And she chimed in and said, "Oh, leave him alone. He's just new at this." And I was. And I was dumbfounded. So he came and got me, he said, before the warriors could change their minds and cause me to stumble into a cactus. And that's the story. What occurs there is it's not sensible. It doesn't make sense. There becomes a time in which you have to believe your senses. And then you kind of have to leave it open to just what is this, with the understanding that I may never know. It also tells me that there's a lot more that I don't know and a lot more I may never know because of my background and because of the limitations of my physical form and who I am. Wonderful experience. This did occur. I'm in awe of it, and by finding the awe and feeling the awe, I know that there's something very special that happens in life that occurs around all of us all the time. And I think you can call it anything you want. Creator, God, heaven, all of that's all true. It certainly brings those senses up for me. I think healing emanates from knowing that I don't know, turning it over and trusting, allowing life to occur as it is without controlling it, trying to be out of that control, the tightening down, the anxiety of anticipating what I need to do to control more, and the tightening down of the events in life around you. And if ailments, when ailments occur, saying, well, I'll look at different things in addition to the primary regular medical way. I'll give myself permission to look at everything else because it's equally valid. And I know that deciding for myself is better than somebody deciding for me. And there's a place for all of it. The healing comes from the letting go and the relaxation. Keith, did I answer your question?
Yes, Dr. Fain. I love that story. very reminiscent of Carlos Castaneda's books and stories. I don't know if any of the attendees are familiar with Carlos Castaneda and the books that he wrote back, what, the 60s, I believe?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, it gives me goosebumps every time I hear it, and I think it's wonderful, what you're saying you've derived from that, this wisdom that there is more than even the senses, right?
Yes, more than the
Experience
senses.
around us, right?
Yes, yes, more than the senses, more than the intellect, far more than the intellect.
Right, right. Yeah, wonderful story. And so at this point, I want to move into where this experience in the desert has taken you. And, obviously you've approached a very natural way to life and healing. And your business, Fain's Herbacy, you're prescribing natural supplements and vitamins, and you're very much uh, a supporter of the natural way of life. And so I would like for you to explain what this wisdom transferred into, and then give some practical tips to our attendees to living a healthy life.
Sure. Before we quite do that, I wanted to show you this. This was a gift from Lynch to me. He made this himself. The beadwork was all done by him. And this is called a prayer stick. And it's always held in the left hand. And it's a way to center and to stay focused when doing your prayer or meditation. It's in some ways similar to a crucifix or something along that line, and the use of it. It's a way to stay centered. And so this is a cherished gift that I got from Lunch during that time.
Wonderful.
Now, yeah, now this has been a process for me. The high science and the medicine and learning the body and learning how the body works, and on the research side, expanding that knowledge of how the body works and teaching it. When somebody teaches something, you actually learn more from the process of teaching it and from the students than you do from any other part of the process. It's a marvelous kind of give and take. And part of the beauty of that, part of the terror is, of course, holding yourself up as knowing something when you really don't, and being found out. The beauty of it, though, is that the give and take is so good. Sometimes you can't tell who's giving and who's receiving. It's that good, and that's real giving and taking. And that's what we do here. And I take a lot of time to listen, because my clients learn from me, but I learn from them. And what I try to do is to integrate what I've learned from high science and understanding medicine and the body with the softer materials of where the person is in their life, what the kind of psychosocial, emotional needs are, what's missing, what they're trying to hold on to, what has occurred so that they're seeing me in this moment, and then talking to them about nutritional supplements, which are plant-based materials for the most part. There are some animal-based materials, but mostly they're plant-based materials. And in the old stories, the plants are always the source of the healing foods, always the source of the healing foods. Now, I suggest and recommend there are no prescriptions, because they're all food-based. So there's care taken along that line. But using the science-based approach through PubMed, which is a National Library of Medicine, National Library of Congress database, I research most of my plant-based products so I know what the science says they're good for, and get some idea of what the dosing is useful, what dosing would be useful. There are nomograms, or ways of figuring that out. Sometimes I get animal models, which may or may not translate to humans, but they do translate to dogs and cats, because dogs and cats are used in studies. I'm not a proponent of that, but it's part of the ugly of what we live in that creates beauty. And so I can sort that out too for your four-legged friends. Give you an example. One of the supplements that I really like is called L-theanine. And L-theanine is an amino acid. It's got a great deal of science on it, particularly done by Western medical doctors in Japan. Japan has an excellent medical system, you can imagine. And L-theanine is totally harmless. The L in front means that it's an amino acid, so it's best taken between meals. The dosage can vary depending upon how well the product is made. Mine is sun-theanine, which is the most premium brand of theanine. And it's so safe that I joke with people and say you could swallow the whole bottle, and the only way that would hurt you is if the plastic got stuck halfway down. So it's a joke, of course, but it can't hurt you. Now, why theanine? Well, theanine is shown to create GABA production, which helps with neurotransmitters, and it also helps calm us. In fact, it's not a sedative in any way. It helps calm us by slowing down the spinning and that kind of squirrel wheel that goes on with planning and thinking and anticipating and all of that craziness that this world that we live in often demands of us. How many times have you been actually free from your cell phone, and how many times have you been free from texting, and how many times have you been anticipating what you need to do the next day? Theanine just takes you into that place of everything's cool. It's all right. I still stay on track because I'm well focused. I'm not spinning. It's a nice supplement. It can be used during the day. It can be used at bedtime. It can be used in the middle of the night when you wake up and want to go back to sleep. It's not a sedative. It just stops all that thinking. Now, that's different than something like the relaxation support. Though the relaxation support, which is my private label, has theanine in it. So it does do some of that. But this also causes a relaxation effect on the entire body. It's just not the thinking part. It's the entire body. So musculature relaxes. It's just a lot easier to get rid of knots and aches and pains and not be so tense and so driven with something like relaxation support. With relaxation support, you could take so much that you would fall asleep. With theanine, you're not likely to fall asleep unless you want to fall asleep. And that's a difference. It's a very interesting combination. Now, why did I go to natural products? I saw the drawbacks to a regular medical approach when I was doing psychotherapy with any number of people who were depressed. The standard of practice, which all practitioners, medical or psychologic, they have by virtue of being licensed and part of a group, have to follow certain ways of approach. In my day, if a person was depressed, I had to refer to a psychiatrist for medical evaluation for the possible prescriptions of Xanax or any number of antidepressants, Prozac, Paxil, Zoloft. Some of those are still around, Wellbutrin, and still used. What I saw often was the depressions would lift, but the side effects would be so that the person's life wouldn't improve. And that caused me to start wondering, gee, is there a better way? So what I actually like is finding a natural approach as given to us by plants to take those stresses away so that people don't feel they have to necessarily go towards synthetics. If they have to go to synthetics, I'm one of the first to say that to them. And I do not get between a doctor and their patient with saying, do this, don't do that. It's very respectful of the process and of the person I'm with. Everybody knows their body better than anybody else if they'll take the time. Did that answer your question?
Yes, that was a wonderful response. Thank you for that, Dr. Fain. And so at this point, let's move in. This is probably a broad question, but let's address this really quick because I love getting pointed advice on on health and practical tips. And I particularly love how you approach health in finding and doing the research and combining the scientific approach to the old ways, the natural health, the herbs and everything. And so,
Yes.
real quick, let's just address maybe this question. What are some practical tips you would give anyone that walks through your door living to live a healthy and natural life? This could be related to sleep, could be related to stress and anxiety, anything.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is a little bit of a joke, but it's real true, and it's all part of it. And it was Will Rogers, when asked that same question, what makes for a good life, he shot back immediately to the pressman, the reporter. Um, everything in balance, my man, everything in balance. Then he pauses, scratches his chin, and says, including balance. And so you have to pay attention, but you don't want to be boring. You want to kick up your heels on one side of that beauty spectrum or on the other side of that beauty spectrum. And don't overload in either direction, but you don't want to overload in the middle either. Bring something fun and adventurous to your life, and just make sure that it brings that sense of excitement and joy to you. When you're in that place, no matter what occurs, your body will respond in a good way. In fact, you're manifesting these good, healthy things. Second thing is healthy choice of food and drink. The food, to me, needs to come from your local farmer's market. It should be organic. It should be as fresh as possible, and it should be the shortest distance from the farmer ranch to the table. Now, there's a lot of shoulds there, and we all live in the real world, and this real world is increasingly dirty in every way, and you can't always do that. But try your best. You can only try your best. Second thing is good water, plenty of good water. Now, some people would claim that good water is found in bourbon, and some people would actually engage that and have fun with it, and that's okay with me as long as it's done in a judicious and responsible manner. The good water, to me, would be free of any additives that, like fluoride. I'm not a fan of fluoride in water at all. I think there are other ways now for fluoride to be given to the people that need it than to medicate everybody. So a triple filter system with reverse osmosis in one location in your house, perfect for that. Some involvement in life, whether that's exercise or staying active. Exercise doesn't have to be going to a gymnasium. It can be staying active. I love getting out on my boat. It's just everything happens when I'm out on my boat that's good for me. And it's very active. I can come back in at the end of the day and take a nap because I've spent so much energy doing it. I really like working out in my yard and staying active with my plants in my yard and that. It's not exercise per se, but it's staying active. Finding things that really goes to your heart and your soul that brings you alive. Perfect, just perfect. In terms of supplementation, I'm a proponent of a multivitamin with or without iron, depending upon where you are in life. I'm a proponent of fish oils, and there are different ones, there are different benefits. People often ask, what about krill oil? What about squid oil? That's a new one coming up and coming, and it goes on and on. Make an appointment, talk with me. We'll sort that out, and I can really focus that down for you according to where you are in your life. And I can teach you what your labs, your blood labs mean and what best to do with that. I can also teach you what your procedures that have been done medically, what they actually mean, so that you have more sense of what's what. I can also suggest things that you can ask your doctor about. And I can teach you all about this material. Another thing I really like is a simple probiotic every day. When I say simple, I don't mean a cheap one. I mean a high quality probiotic, but simply one quality probiotic capsule a day. Lots of reasons for that. The probiotic capsule needs to be able to withstand the stomach acid because stomach acid deactivates a great many of the healthy bacteria. If it withstands the stomach acid, all of it goes to the small bowel and eventually to the lower digestive system, and everything improves. Your immune system improves, your digestion improves, your absorption of nutrients improves. And actually, there are studies linking coronary artery disease to inadequate amounts of healthy probiotics or healthy bacteria like Acidophilus and 12 or 14 other strains in the billions. Many, many benefits. Strongly advocate a young woman who wants to get pregnant and new mothers who are breastfeeding to be on the probiotics on a daily basis before they get pregnant and afterwards. And the reason for this is that the mother's milk carries the strengthened immune system to the newborn. Incredible benefits occur then over this child's lifespan by having a much better immune system. And if you think for a moment that with all of the vaccines that are given to the kids early, you've just helped them get a stronger immune response to those vaccines, which is going to last more of their life and benefit them in every way. There are many other supplements that are beneficial, anti-inflammatories, Inflamove, MSM, turmeric, many of those, but we can all sort that out by a consultation, getting me copies of your labs, getting me copies of studies that have been done, letting me see what supplements you're using and what prescribed drugs you're using, so I can suggest to the best of my ability, and I work hard at this, that there's no contraindication or cross-indication, and that you know that the recommendations are as strong as they can be. Do you have any questions about my response?
Yeah, that was a great answer, Dr. Fain. Thank you so much. I think those are wonderful, very pointed health tips and very on target. For those who don't know me, I'm 25 years old, and I am just getting into the health world myself and really trying to learn how do you control your health and how do you live a happy and healthy life. And everything you've said so far is definitely resonates with everything else I've been hearing. You know, we hear all these different stories every day, right, in articles that what's good for you, what's not. And I love your advice about the diet and, you know, choosing the organic foods. Everything. That was great. That was great. So yes, we will transition into the Q&A session now. We have some questions already from our chat room. Real quick before we do get into the questions, I just want to remind everyone that we are having a promotional sale right now for all the webinars attendees. You can get relaxation support for 33% off. You just click the add to cart button below. You can purchase that right now, but it's only during this webinar. So if you're interested in it, if you feel you could benefit from it some way, we encourage you to do so. But let's move into the Q&A session now. Let me pull up the questions here. I believe our first question was from Mickey. She was asking, as we become more aware of senses beyond our known senses, do you, Dr. Fain, think dealing with disease or ailments becomes more visible, maybe more valid?
Oh, absolutely. Hi, Mickey. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Yes, absolutely. There comes a point in dealing with ailments that you realize that it's not really an ailment. It's just my process and where I am. And that acceptance that transcends everything else. As in terms of heightening senses, I think anybody who wishes to have those senses heightened, ailments can actually cause that to occur. It takes away some of the having an ailment. For instance, I have a certain amount of coronary artery disease, and most people do, and I do for sure, and it has heightened my life, because I literally know, and I don't mean this in a more morbid way at all, but I literally know that I could actually get up in the middle of the night, to go to the bathroom and fall over and be dead. And, and see, I'm not bothered by that. It's because it brings life now. Mm-hmm. And wow. I mean, ooh, wow. And talk about joy. Talk about just joy. So yes, Mickey, absolutely. Now, and one quick thing here. I think it's important, and Mickey, I think you'll resonate to this. I think it's important to keep all of the medical testing and all of the diagnosis and all of the labeling in context with just what the system is. And none of the medical testing and none of the diagnoses ever define you, the person, or me, the person. I am not a victim of coronary artery disease. I'm Jim Fain, whose life has been made more exciting and more beneficial because I have some coronary artery disease. Beauty is life. Life includes beauty, also the toxicity. Without the beauty, you don't see the toxicity. Without the toxicity, you don't see the beauty. And it does transform.
Very well said. I want to chime in real quick too and let you know that we have Jan Walsh here and Mickey, and they are currently on either sides of the continent right now. It sounds like one of them's from Florida and one of them's from California. So this is a great example, guys, of what we're excited to do with these webinars, and the fact that we can have these really intimate kind of gatherings online with people from all over the nation and world, for that matter, and reap the benefits of your knowledge, Dr. Fain. So I'll move into the next question now.
Sure.
Jan Walsh asked, she was not understanding what you were talking about with L-theanine. She was asking, is that a supplement name? If you want to kind of talk about that a bit.
Yeah, L-theanine is a supplement name. And L, the designator L in front of anything that's a supplement, means it's in the amino acid family. There are many different amino acids, and some of them are called essential and some are non-essential. It doesn't matter really for use. But L-theanine is an amino acid, totally harmless in every way, can't harm you, and very effective at causing a production of neurotransmitters that causes our brain to stop spinning and obsessing and planning and anticipating. And I know for me, my background is it's just who I am anyway. It's not just my background, but I'm a curious guy and a researcher. I've looked into everything that I've found to be interesting and curious throughout my life. And sometimes when I'm working with a customer here at the Herbacy, and I come across something very difficult and confounding, it causes me to get into this now, just what is that? And that'll stay with me until I find a way of getting a handle on it. And sometimes it comes to me at 2 o'clock in the morning. And, I need my sleep too. So what I do is I take a couple of theanine when I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, go back to bed, and sleep the rest of the night through. And I still remember what I needed to remember. And then I take the next step the next day after having had a good night's sleep. So theanine is remarkable. It's great for anxiety, and it's great for that spinning and anticipating, future sensing, if you will. And it's a delightful find for almost everybody. It's on sale too, I believe, for 30% off, just as is the relaxation support at 30% off on my eBay store and in the store.
Great. Cool, then I'll go to the next question now. Jan Walsh has another question asking, does the relaxation support have an effect in slowing the digestion process, specifically a slowing of the elimination process?
It should not have an effect on the motility of your system. That being said, if somebody has some unusual ailments that have to do with motility and gastric emptying, this product is probably not the better product. L-theanine is a better choice for reducing of worry and anxiety for somebody with motility problems. For most anybody else, the relaxation support would be a really good choice, particularly for taking just before you go to bed, that kind of thing. The theanine, daytime use, perfectly great. This would be fine for daytime use as long as you don't take too much, because it can be on the sedating side if you take a lot of it. Jan, I hope I answered your question. By the way, Jan, where are you in California?
She might have set it up above. I'm sure she'll chime in the chat room here shortly. She has another question here too. Can one take, or does one need to take both L-theanine and the relaxation support to relax both body and mind?
It's possible to take both. Remember, though, the relaxation support has theanine in it. So it's unlikely that you would need to do both of them if you wanted the body relaxed and the mind relaxed. You could do just the relaxation support. Again, as long as you don't take so much that you end up sedated and drowsy, that kind of thing. That's okay if you want to be drowsy and sedated, but I wouldn't recommend it at work or if you're driving a car or something like that. Theanine, by virtue of slowing the brain down, has an indirect effect of relaxing the tension in the body. Anxiety is the emotion. Tension is the body process of tightening down in response to the emotion. And they're nice together. They can be used separately. Remember, finding your own dose that's right for you under the conditions that you're living in at the time is the way to go. And it's perfectly adjustable and adaptable to that. And I urge people to take their own power with natural products to use as much or as little as they need.
Wonderful, wonderful. And to answer your question, Dr. Fain, Jan Walsh McBride, she says she lives outside of Santa Barbara. She met you a few years ago when she was in Eureka visiting.
Yeah, a beautiful, beautiful area. One of my favorite places in the world is Ojai, which is right nearby her. And Ojai is an upscale version of Eureka Springs. So no question why I'm attracted to Eureka Springs. And I love our beautiful little village here too. So it brings back wonderful memories. Thank you.
Wonderful. I may be saying this name incorrectly, but I wanted to share a testimonial in the chat room here from Sujan, I believe.
Yes, Sujan.
Okay, Sujan. He said he had whiplash about a month ago and went into Fain's Herbacy. You recommended relaxation support, and it allowed him to take it to work and was quite effective in helping him overcome the whiplash. So that's a great story, and thank you, Sujan, for sharing that with us.
Yeah, some of the ingredients in the relaxation support I've had put in there because of the muscle relaxation. And of course, whiplash is about the impact of the cervical spine by the muscles being damaged and tightened. And it typically takes the curve out of the cervical spine, which is quite painful. And relaxing the muscles. And of course, this is one way of doing it. Another way would be hot tubbing. Another way would be having a good massage. And there are some excellent massage therapists that we refer to all the time through the Herbacy locally. But all of those are ways to do it, of taking care of something like a whiplash.
Wonderful. Okay, so everyone knows that it's online right now. If you are interested in asking a question to Dr. Fain, we're doing this Q&A session right now, and you can type your question down below in the chat box. Dr. Fain, we'll go ahead and begin wrapping this up. If you want to just recap the wisdom and the things that you learned, and ultimately what we should take away from your story today and your experiences, I'll go ahead and review the questions. If you'll have questions, ask right now. And I did want to thank, we had some purchases from some of the attendees: James Edwards, Susan Michaels, Daniel Jameson, Lewis Halpern, and Jamie Flynn. Thank you for supporting us and making your purchase today. It means the world to us, and we're very excited to keep doing these kind of webinars and providing this information in one-on-one contact with Dr. Fain. If you have questions, we can address them on here. Thank you.
And thank you to all of the above who have made the purchases. Let me say one thing about that. When you buy online or when you mail order from us, you have direct access to Robin and Ginger simply by phone calls. And when that happens, there is no fee to connect with Robin and Ginger, and they've been trained by me. And that gives you access to my expertise through them. And you gain that by this action on your part. So we're here for you, and we'll stand by you. And if they don't know the answer, they'll come to me and they'll ask me, and then they'll get back with you and talk you through it. So that's one more service that we offer.
Wonderful. What Jan Walsh asked, what probiotic do you recommend?
My own private label. Mine is called Supremadophilus. It's on the eBay store and my store there. And the Supremadophilus has over 12 families. I think it's 14 families actually of most of the ones that science knows that we need for all of the benefits. And it's also produced in such a way that it withstands stomach acid, and it's all lyophilized, meaning freeze-dried, so you don't have to keep it in a bottle in the refrigerator, and you don't have to drink a kind of a liquid that has a little bit of a funk factor to it. It's like drinking that liquid. Easy to do, wonderful product. Generally, I like one a day of that Supremadophilus for everybody. If there are some ailments in line, perhaps 2 a day. If there's really severe gastric problems going on, something like 4 a day. Post-antibiotic therapy, everybody should take some kind of probiotic. And I like a person to take probiotics toward the end of their antibiotic therapy, and typically for the same number of days that they were on the antibiotic. And if there are symptoms in the GI tract, 4 a day for that number of days. If there aren't symptoms, 2 a day for that number of days that they're on the antibiotic. And it makes a big difference. Other than that, choosing a probiotic that is lyophilized, like mine, 12 to 14 families in the billions, and a product that is made to be enteric coated or survive stomach acid, that's the kind of probiotic I like people to use.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for that answer, Dr. Fain. I'm not seeing any more questions here, so we'll go ahead and wrap up this webinar. If you want to just recap over about 5 minutes here, what you've explained today and what you want people to take away with them.
Sure. The high science, the high tech, and the low tech, high touch all converges on the same confirmation of what life is. And life can't be explained easily. There's sometimes times that we can't wrap our heads around what has occurred. It's important to recognize there's greater than us, and it goes beyond our understanding and our ability to sense, to see, feel, touch, taste, and to even wrap our minds around what is. There's greater than us. The high tech, way down into the nuclear physics, is talking about something called a God particle, which is a lower case God that causes the formation of material and from energy. Intentionality is what I've learned from my friend in the desert. Intentionality is what causes us to sort things and put things together in the way that we want our lives to be. Intentionality goes hand in hand with beauty is life, life is experience, experience brings measure, as long as we're aware. There's always a need to turn something over to something greater than us. And whatever you want to call that, it's a healing place to go. And I urge people to have a way of turning it over, to let go. The 12-steppers call it let go, let God. And it's okay with me to call that energy anything you wish. The letting go allows the healing to occur. Healing isn't the same as curing. The curing can occur spontaneously sometimes. Healing can occur throughout your life. The way to use nutritional supplements in that process is to understand that this is a different way of approaching health and well-being than prescribed drugs. There's not a definite dosage. You can empower yourself to use more or less. Yes, there are some that shouldn't be used with prescribed drugs, but I could say there are some prescribed drugs that shouldn't be used with natural products. I can help you sort that out. It's really good to get your nutrition through food. When you need more than what food can provide, that's where the supplements come in. The supplements are more potent ways of getting the goodness of nature for particular uses that improve your health and well-being. The food selections, in my opinion, should be from the shortest distance from the ranch or the garden to your table, as fresh as possible, as organic as possible. I like supporting our local farmers market. In fact, I was there this morning, and look at this beauty. I showed it a little bit earlier, but I mean, holy moly. I mean, that's just absolutely gorgeous. And not only do I have this wonderful piece of nature to look forward to for dinners, not one, probably more like four, I also have gotten to know the farmer. Her name is Celia, and I thoroughly enjoy Celia, and I've met her family. And every time I go to the farmer's market, there's a lot of joy in meeting people on a weekly basis and laughing and just Googling at all the wonderful beauty around me. They, on a more psychological side, remember the story of scratching the chin and saying everything in moderation, everything in balance, including moderation. Kick up your heels either direction. Staying in the middle all the time is deadening. The more deadening you become, the more tight you become, the more manifestation of chronic injury one gets, a chronic ailment one gets. We're not thoroughly responsible for all of our ailments. Accidents happen, and things occur beyond our ability to influence. We are 100% responsible for how we respond to them. Sometimes changing our mindset changes our ailments that can occur. It's important to keep that in mind and to know you have a lot of say-so and a lot of power. If there is a chronic ailment of some kind, ask yourself, what does this mean to me? What's the message from it so that I can live my life more fully? Whether that's for another 6 months, another 5 years, another 15, another 20, another 60 years. How can I live my life more fully and in a way that makes sense to me? Going against your best knowing, other than going against being resistant, going against your best knowing will almost always get you into trouble in some way. So pay attention to that voice inside. The diet plan, I don't think I touched on this exactly, but these days I really like the Mediterranean food plan, and I like the South Beach. The South Beach and the Mediterranean are very, very similar. It's just the recipes are different. They're both delicious, easy to do, and very good for you. That being said, there are certain people like stone producers that perhaps shouldn't be on either one of those diets completely. And that's something you can sort out with me should we have a consultation and we talk. Remember, you can make a consultation with me through the website. You can make a consultation through me by calling our Fain's Herbacy and prepaying through PayPal, getting me your labs, getting me copies of studies done, giving me a list of your prescribed drugs and what supplements you're choosing to use, if any. I can help you sort that out. I can keep the ones that are contraindicated sorted out as to the best of my ability, and we can then you can enlist an expert to help guide you through these parts of life that you need to have a little extra guidance for, and we all do from time to time. Believe me, I have my own too. I've thoroughly enjoyed this newfangled workshop, and giving up my self-label of a Luddite, and so I get to add a little something different. I'm 62 years old, and I struggled with this for a long time, and I still struggle with it. And but embracing this kind of healthy change is a good thing. I really do want to thank my webmaster, Heath Redding, for his expertise and his ability and his patience, especially with using the camera with me and my staff. That's hard to do. None of us are performers, but he did a good job. I'm sure most of it was editing. But
it's doing wonderful, Dr. Fain. This webinar has gone surprisingly smooth for our first one, so I'm really excited, as we've said earlier, to host more of these, and we look forward to providing y'all with more, pointed education and health tips from Dr. Fain. So I think that answers all the questions. We don't have any more here in the chat rooms. I do want to thank Susan Johnson real quick, David Jones, Harry McCarthy, and William Gomez for making purchases today. So all of y'all know the relaxation support will be on sale for another hour here, for another 33% off for another hour. So if you're interested in it, please make a purchase. It helps us. It helps us keep all these going. Thank you, thank you. And Dr. Fain, last words.
One more thing. Remember my ebook. You got to download your ebook.
That's right. And actually, if you make a purchase of the relaxation support today, you'll be redirected after you pay out through PayPal, and you can download the free ebook if you haven't already. So it's got a lot of great tips, a lot of, what is it, almost 10, 15 years of different articles we pulled from your favorite, best articles you've written on different subjects. So it's loaded with great stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'm sure glad you tuned in. Thank you for making it an enjoyable experience. I have a lot of joy. This will carry through for many days, I know, for me.
Wonderful. All right, we're going to shut it down, guys. Thank y'all so much for attending. Bye.